The UFC was hit with yet another antitrust lawsuit today. This one is headlined by Phil Davis. I've only read a little bit of the article. I like, recording these videos and giving you my first impressions on whatever I'm reading. I just think it's funner that way. I can, give you all my first thoughts and we can go back and forth in the comments. But this year for the UFC has been very detrimental. Fans are pissed. We're not getting the fights we want. We're barely getting any promotion from Dana White and the UFC. And things like these don't help. Now, this one is veteran MMA fighter Phil Davis leads latest lawsuit versus the UFC. If you guys don't know who Phil Davis is, he is this guy right here, Mr. Wonderful. He's 40 years old. His last fight, he beat Robert Wilkins May 1st, so, this month. He lost to Corey Anderson by split decision. Fought Vadim for the belt, lost by unanimous decision. But you look at some of the wins he has, Yoel Romero, Leota Machida. You know, we know what Bellator was. Bellator was the UFC rejects. Ryan Bader is a prime example. He ran over there, became a two division champ, beat Fedor Emelianenko, did all that stuff. But yeah, he debuted in the UFC around 2010 against Brian Stan, and went on what is that, a 5 fight win streak before losing to Rashad Evans on Fox 2 in 2012. So let's get back to this and see what this is all about. Veteran mixed martial artist Phil Davis has filed yet another antitrust lawsuit against the UFC. The lawsuit, which was filed in U.S. District Court of Nevada on Thursday, alleges the UFC has created an unfair marketplace for fighters by limiting other promotions' ability to sign top level talent. The lawsuit was filed by Bertram Montijo, the same firm that did the 375 million settlement that I was just talking about. Four fighters who competed from 2010 to 2017. The suit was filed in 2014 and the parties settled in February. The UFC is currently in litigation on multiple other antitrust cases involving fighters from different periods of time. The newest suit, which was Zuffa LLC, TK Group Holdings, and Endeavor Group Holdings as defendants, alleges that even fighters who are not under contract with the UFC suffer from an inability to secure fair wages because of the UFC's unlawful efforts to eliminate competition. If you guys are new and maybe you came in during the Connor era, maybe the ESPN era, maybe Alex Pereira brought you in, we used to have plenty of other organizations. We had Bellator before PFL ruined that. We had PFL before that went to shit. We have ONE FC, which is still around. We had Strike Force, which was ultimately um, bought out. Pride, all those organizations. But now the UFC has a monopoly. PFL is dead. They are shutting down next year. GFL just announced that, yeah, we're fucking done. We have no money. So the UFC is your only chance. You go on the regional scenes, maybe you make it to the Contender Series, or, the Ultimate Fighter, which nobody gives a shit about anymore. I might make a video on that. But let's continue reading. The suit alleges that UFC impairs the ability of would-be UFC competitors to attract critical mass of top-level MMA fighters necessary to compete with the UFC at the top tier of the sport. The plaintiff attorney Eric Kramer said in a statement, We intend to prove that the UFC engaged in a predatory scheme to undermine would-be competitors to the UFC, which the suit claims had the effect of maintaining and enhancing the UFC's dominance, and thereby impairing the careers and pay not just of the UFC's own fighters, sorry, but also of professional MMA fighters like Mr. Davis, competing for MMA promotions across the MMA industry. Among other aims, the lawsuit seeks to enable a fighter to terminate a promotional contract without penalty after 1 year. That is really good. That is very interesting. I really doubt they will be able to do that, but that'd be a great out for fighters. I know that Francis was well over a year, but we have so many guys that they become a big name, they get treated like shit, and they want to get out. Let's continue though. Standard contracts consist of a number of MMA bouts to take place over an unspecified amount of time. Typically, these guys are assigned to, I believe, 4 to 8 fights. I know that John, when he was signed back in, that was before the Gun fight, I think he signed an 8 fight deal. I could be wrong. Might have been the Reyes fighter that Santos fight. I don't remember. In a prepared statement, Davis said, "I am proud to stand up for professional MMA fighters to unlock the UFC's stranglehold on the entire sport." The UFC did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Davis, 40, fought exclusively in the UFC from 2010 to 2015. He signed with Bellator MMA in 2015 and competed under the banner up until this year when the Bellator roster was folded into the PFL. And we all know what happened there. They're talking about Barber missing weight. I made a short on that, but let's face it, nobody cares about the fight night tomorrow. This is bad for the UFC, dude. This is really bad because, you know, this is the third one. When they settled the first two, in the back of my mind, I thought it would make sense that this should open a floodgate for more lawsuits. But the problem is that especially now, ever since the UFC has had the ESPN deal, they made it to mainstream sports. They're up there with the NFL, NBA, NHL. They got Stephen A. Smith talking about MMA on First Take. They've got Good Guy, Bad Guy, Chael Sonnen's other show, DC and RC. Whatever shows they still have going on. Oh man, like I remember in one of them, Silva got a payout of 10 mil. Anderson Silva was a face of MMA for the better part. I mean, he still is. He's been a face of MMA for the better part of like what 20 years. I gotta be over that, right? Because I mean, we're in 2025 now. I think he debuted in 2006. I could be wrong. Uh, One of you guys maybe know when he debuted, but again, man, the fans are pissed. The fighters are pissed. I don't like. I really don't know if it's the UFC's decision making, if it's Endeavor, if it's in TKO. I kind of think it's a mix of both, right? Because if you didn't realize, the biggest story right now is one of the legends that built this sport. Actually, two, Nick Diaz as well. You have a lot of guys dealing with addiction very publicly. Yeah, Bonner. UFC, Dana White credits the UFC surviving with The Ultimate Fighter Season 1 and the fight with Griffin and Bonner. One of the greatest fights ever. Without that fight, they would have folded. But now that, they don't have Strike Force to compete with, they don't have Pride. They don't need to compete against Fedor Emelianenko, even though they really wanted to get the Brock Lesnar fight done. But I heard that Fedor's manager was, wanted a piece of the UFC and all that stuff. But again, the other part of me with the whole situation is that Fedor is one of the greatest to ever do it, one of the biggest names, and the UFC never was able to get him in there. The Brock fight would have been massive. And I mean, hey, if Brock Lesnar went out there and beat Fedor, like you go back and look at Brock's career, right? And like Joe Rogan years ago said that if Brock Lesnar found the right coaches, he would have been unstoppable. And I completely agree. I feel like a Greg Jackson or who would have been no, what was the camp back then? Well, you know what I mean. If he went to a proper MMA gym, got the proper coaching, did the striking training that he needed, even though he knocked out Randy Couture, he would have been a monster. But I'm getting off topic here. We are paying $80 a pay per view, over 80 with tax in Canada. I believe that's 60 or 70 American, and we're paying for less of a product each year. We're paying for shittier cards each year. Like, the outrage for UFC 312 with DDP and Sean Strickland. It ended up being an okay pay per view, but for $80, I didn't think it was worth it. $80 is a lot of money. That's like half. That's half, if not over half, of a grocery bill for me. But no, we break records. We're breaking records every fight. We're breaking attendance records. We're breaking pay per view records. Even though they haven't talked about the pay per views much this year. We all see the numbers. I gotta move that lamp. Um, UFC 315 was they couldn't even sell a half of UFC 315 2 days out of the fight or event. Thank you to whoever subscribed. Your thing did not pop up. I don't know why. Um, fuck, man, dude. Like, this is now what, $900 million in antitrust. And I'm all for any fighter, whether I like how you fight, whether I like your personality. You gotta be greedy. You gotta be selfish in this sport. You gotta go in there. You gotta make it clear you're a badass. You're good on the mic, and you deserve your money. But when you have no other option, we get what we have now. We get the Dana White Contender Series. We're hyping up all of these guys. Paige and Talbot, Chase Hooper. A few of them have panned out. Jamal Hill won the belt. O'Malley won the belt. But majority of these guys can't even beat a ranked 50 guy who, is maybe 1-3 in his last five. Maybe has fought, a couple of the top guys on the way up. But like, look at Raoni Barcelos. Look at how easily he beat Peyton Talbot, a guy that the UFC was really pushing behind. Bo Nickel, right? My NCAA champ. This guy, American wrestler, undefeated. He's so good, man. Yeah, he's so good that he can only throw one overhand. He's so good that his jabs are shit. He's so good that Renier DeRitter. Well, I picked Renier DeRitter to win that fight by decision, right? But like in the back of my mind, that fight panned out exactly how I thought it would be. I thought that in the clinch, because Bo Nickal is the wrestler, he would be fucked. Renier DeRitter on the feet, even though, Renier DeRitter is primarily a grappler, but he has a Dutch kickboxing background, which Dutch kickboxing, holy shit, they have killers over there. Um, but yeah, the USA are trying to build random stars, trying to find the next McGregor. They thought that was O'Malley. That's not O'Malley. And now, that's just the biggest story right now. $375 million. Who knows how much this one will be settled for? We'll have to see what other names are on this lawsuit. But fuck, man. The UFC is seriously going downhill faster than we can comprehend. I don't think, McGregor Chandler in January is gonna fix it. It'll sell. It'll make money, but I think a majority of the people buying that pay per view are gonna watch it to see Conor McGregor probably get knocked out, probably get out grappled. What the fuck are we doing here? Again, I'm a small YouTube channel. I'm growing, right? It would be much easier to grow if there was something to fucking promote. If there was, fights constantly coming up with interest. If it really was the best fighting the best. But no, we got random number 8 contenders fighting for the belt. Kaya Sakura comes over from Ryzen, immediately gets a title shot. And then Pantoja made easy work of that fight. Same thing with Royval and Tetsu Taira, right? What the fuck are we doing? Really? Where's the promotion? And why aren't we paying, guys? Why aren't we trying to make the UFC the best of the best? Why is it now we're just getting random fucking dudes from backyards, which I know that's how MMA began. We're getting the most random prospects. They'll be 8-0, 6-0. This guy's young. This guy is the future. And then they get project. But I don't know, man. Part of me hopes that this antitrust will change something with the direction that UFC is going down. But I think it's too late, man. I think that the UFC is too big now for Dana White to care to promote. I think unless we see a major drop in pay-per-views and a major drop in interest, which again we are seeing, we won't see any change. But I will pay close attention to this antitrust lawsuit. We've got our other stories, like I said, the BJ Penn one. I'm trying to find an update on Nick Diaz. I've been digging for that one. But someone's gotta change, man. Someone's gotta change, and it's sad that the UFC is the only place in MMA right now. UFC is MMA at this point. But let me know in the comments down below. What do you think about yet another antitrust lawsuit being filed? This time, under Phil Davis. Well, like I said, we'll have to see what other fighters are added to this. I'll try and even find the court filings if I can. But let me know what you think down below. Thanks for watching. Once again, thank you guys for the love and support. Really means a lot. And yeah, later.